Hello everyone and welcome to this week's webinar. We are here in Scottsdale, Arizona at My Swing Pro 3D Motion Capture Studio. My Swing is a capture system for athletes, for coaches, for golf, for baseball, and many other sports. We're also brought to you by Medicus Golf and Kick-Ax Golf. Almost missed the webinar this morning because I thought we had another hour, so we just finished eating some great chicken at Raising Cane's Chicken here in Scottsdale, Arizona. If you have any questions, just put them in the sidebar, and I'll get to those as soon as we finish. So today's webinar is on accuracy or power, distance, we should say. And those two combinations are almost mutually exclusive, kind of like dry ice, jumbo shrimp. Most players are not long and accurate. The exception would be Greg Norman, who's probably the longest and most accurate driver to ever play golf. So there's a couple things you want to look at. It does you no good to be short and crooked because you're getting mid to long irons from the rough. You can, however, be long and crooked because now you're getting a short iron or a wedge. And that's kind of how they're playing today on the PGA Tour. There's a book out by Eric Marzeski and Dave Wedzik called Lowest Score Wins, and in that they assign what's called shot values. We'll talk more about that in later weeks. But it would also tell you that if you can carry the trouble and your ball ends up in the rough and you have a short iron unobstructed to the green, you should take that play instead of hitting something shorter, hitting in the middle of the fairway. So again, it kind of depends on your golf course and how you play the game. So let's talk about accuracy first. So the key to accuracy is controlling a couple of pieces of the golf swing. Number one, the path that the club hand is taking. Whether it's moving more inward to outward, or whether it's moving more outward to inward, or whether it's moving more of what they refer to as down the line. The second piece of that is your club face related to that path. So the ball will primarily start where the club face is pointed and curve away from the path. We've talked about this in many webinars in the past. And you can just go on the website, you can find those. You can go to the YouTube channel for Medicus webinar as well, and you can find them there too. So the accuracy part has to do with the face relationship to the path, and where you want this ball to start, how much it curves, and the trajectory you're trying to play. The distance component of that is based upon several things. Number one, the swing speed that the club is coming in to impact at. The angle of attack, whether it's coming in downward or the driver a little bit upward. The centeredness of the contact. And then again, your path and your face. So you have to realize that we'll just use round numbers, for example. So if your club is traveling at 100 miles an hour at impact, let's just say the ball will travel 2.3 yards based on your impact speed. That would be a 230-yard carry, and depending on how it drops out of the sky and what angle, it's going to depend on how far it rolls. So that's if you're swinging at 100 miles an hour. So if you're only swinging at 50 miles an hour, that's only going to give you 115 yards of carry, and then the resulting roll. So with irons, you're trying to hit the ball a certain distance in the air because you want to hold the green. With woods, you have to remember that as you're hitting it in the air, it's also going to have a percentage of rollout too. Again, based upon the angle that's coming down. If you launch it, let's say at 90 feet, and it's coming down at 45 or 40, you'll probably get more roll. If you're launching it at 90 feet in the air and it's coming down at 60 or 50, you're not going to get as much roll. So again, you're trying to get upward with the driver and more downward when the ball is on the ground with your irons. If you hit downward with a driver, you can get away with that if your swing speed is in excess of 120 miles an hour. The average player on tour, the latest stats, where they get 1.3 degrees up. On the latest tour, they're getting around 4 degrees up. Now, the longest hitters on tour are hitting somewhere between 4 and 6 degrees of the impact. So, but they're generating tremendous amounts of club head speed too. So for the average golfer, you want to feel like at impact, especially with the driver, because that's what everybody's looking for with distance, is how do you hit your driver farther. You want to feel at impact that you are hitting slightly upward. So the feel for that would be, think of it, you're hitting it off of an uphill slope. Everything is tilted this way. You're going to swing along the slope, So that's swinging more upward through the ball. With a iron and you want to swing down, you got to feel like you're hitting off a downward slope. So you're swinging down the slope, right? And that's making you get down farther on the ball. Now, you don't want to get down too much. If your angle of attack gets too steep, it's going to have a tendency to shove the ball a little bit more to the right. It's going to have a little bit too much spin. So you have to figure out, if you want more distance, you've got to swing the club faster. You've got to change your angle of attack. You've got to get up with the driver. Make sure that you can carry the trouble out there. So let's say you're on a hole and from the tee, there's a bunker, right side and left side, they're equal distance from the tee, and it's 230 to carry that bunker on either side. So now what you have to figure out as a right or left-handed player is, with my normal swing with the driver, can I carry it 230 9 out of 10 times? So you want to be able to carry it 235, 240 just to make sure. If you cannot, then that bunker is going to be in play. But again, if you carry it, even if it lands in the rough, and you have a short iron left, go ahead and get that shot. But if you can't, then lay up short of that trouble. You'll have a longer iron in, and you won't be as accurate as if you had a shorter iron. So again, it's up to the player. You have to figure out what is in your best interest, and also what is your strength and weakness when you're playing this game. So we've got a bunch of questions here, so let's start on the questions. All right, the first question is from Don. Does the left shoulder go down in the backswing? That's a really good question, Don. I'm going to grab a club here and show you something. All right, so let's say that this club is my spine and this club is my shoulders. Okay, so if I stand erect, the shoulders would turn absolutely level. But we don't stand erect playing golf, we lean forward. So as I'm leaning forward now what does my left shoulder do? It goes more downward. It's still just about 90 degrees to your spine, as you can see from this angle. Okay. So yes, your left shoulder does go down. So how do we get that, how do we train that to work properly? A good way would just be stand up, turn to your right or turn away from the golf ball in a vertical position. Now lean forward. So I'll do it from this side. Stand vertical, lean forward, boom, there's my angle of my shoulders right there. Okay. Now you may notice my shoulder angle hasn't changed, although it looks like it has because my left arm and my shoulder have worked this direction. So they are working downward. So you want to feel that your left shoulder goes downward and inward, not just down, because then you wind up over here. It's not just in, because then we move off the ball too much. So it's going downward and inward until you get to the top of your backswing. Now what's going to happen is it changes roles. Right shoulder now starts moving downward and outward. You bring the club here. So you still have this tilt and impact, just like you had the tilt at the top of the swing. All right, next question. Good question, though. All right, this one is by Walter. How can I make the bottom of my swing arc 4 inches in front of the ball? I know I must do that, but I can never make it happen. All right, so Walter, I know your question is related to Bobby Clampett's impact zone. And here's the deal. If you strike the golf ball in the middle of your chest, then this is much more than 4 inches. That's how far your club should travel. If you strike it here, the club will travel this far. All right, so the key to striking downward is a couple of things. You have to have your pressure forward, You have to have your hands forward, so the shaft's got to be leaning forward. As you strike the ball, the club continues down, what we would call down plane and down into the ground until it reaches its lowest point underneath my left shoulder, or your left shoulder. Once it reaches that point, the club's going to come out of the ground. So you may not be swinging 4 inches. It could be 6, it could be 8, it could be 2, depending on the club that you have. So if my ball position is farther forward, that means when I strike the ball right here, it's only going to travel to here. That's only about 2 or 3 inches. If I have the ball in the middle of my stance, and I strike it, that's going to continue downward all the way to here. Now that's going to be closer to 8 inches. So that number is going to vary depending on ball location relative to where this arm is hanging. Okay? You've got to remember, that's the only place where that hangs in a straight line. So if I strike the ball back here, you'll see how far that goes into the ground all the way up to here. And again, that's much more than 4 inches based on that ball position. All right, next question.
This one is from Ron. Spine angle. Extension coordinated with arm, leg, and club movement. Do you stand up, squat during the swing, and when?
Standing up, this would be standing up. So actually, when you are going upward like this, you also have to be moving. You have to add what's called side bend. So if I stand up and side bend, here's a standing up portion, here's a side bending portion. If I do those both together, for you it may feel like you're standing up, but those have to work together, or otherwise you will just completely stand up. And you don't want to do that, because if I'm 6 foot tall at a dress, and all I do is stand up, right now I'm about 6'6", so my club would never even touch the ground. I have to come back to it. So once you're up here and you start down, you're going to feel some pressure in your legs as you're starting to what we call settle back down. And now the right shoulder is going to replace the left for a right-handed golfer coming down into impact. So a good drill for that, to see how much you should take, is take the club, put it on the side of your body like this. The club head facing outward. Put your hand on the club head. Go back to about waist high, and now just turn through. And you'll see exactly where your body would need to be, how much turn you would have through the shot. Okay? All right, next question.
All right, this question is from Brooks. What is the most effective way to hit a draw?
All right, Brooks, we've talked about this many, many times, curving the golf ball. If you're going to hit a draw and you're a right-handed player, you have to aim your club face, or your club face has to be aiming to the right of where you want to end up at impact. So if this was my target line, right, I'd want my club face over this way, right, coming into the ball, or set it there at address, just make sure it's there at impact. Now from there, my path, which is what the club head swings on, would have to be farther right of the club face. So remember, when you're hitting a draw, no matter where it starts, and you're a right-handed golfer, that means your path was to the right of the club face. If you're hitting a fade, again, no matter where it starts and you're a right-handed golfer, then the path was to the left of the face. So again, just get set. And what we see is a ton of golfers, I'll give you a little quick drill here. What we see is a ton of golfers from the top of the swing is they get their wrists more in this look, kind of a bent look. So when they come down, you can see how that club face is laying wide open. I would suggest when you get to the top that you take your lead hand and feel like you rotate it backwards. So what you're trying to do is add a little arching, we call it, to that wrist, okay, or flexion with arching. And now when I do that, look what it does to the club face now. So now when I get down into here, you can see where the club face is. This is where most slicers are, because this wrist is bent this direction instead of being arched in that direction. You can do that one of two ways. You can take it up there in the backswing and leave it there, just come down with it, Or you can make a normal backswing and just feel in the start down that your hands are rotating this way. That's what's called laying the shaft down behind you. You can also hold on to your left hand with your right hand. When you get to the top, this is a drill, once again, take your right hand and pull that left hand back towards you. You'll see how that is also arching that wrist. I'll let you see his club face too. So that's the feel of that wrist. So either way, you've got to get that club face tilted down more instead of toe up or even toe behind. All right, next question.
All right, and this is air. Do you do something special if you want both distance and accuracy?
Yes, you practice. Because like I said, they're usually mutually exclusive. We like to get our players to hit it as hard as they possibly can to gain the distance first. Then we work on the accuracy portion of it. And we do that by making adjustments to the club face, adjustments to the path in the club face, adjustments possibly to the grip. So there's a lot of adjustments we make to get the accuracy part in there. The first thing you want to do is hit this thing as hard as you can, then learn how to control it. All right, well, that's all we have for this week. I don't see any more questions up there. So we want to thank you guys again for your questions. If you have a subject you want me to talk about, just make sure you send it to us. For those of you who want to review this webinar, it'll be up on the website tomorrow morning, and you'll be able to watch it in its entirety as well. All right, so until then, see you guys.